Sylvester Stallone. The name alone conjures images of grit, determination, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. For decades, he has been the face of underdog triumph, a symbol of hope for anyone who has ever been told they weren't good enough. From the battered streets of Philadelphia in Rocky to the war-torn jungles of Rambo, Stallone's characters have inspired millions. But behind the muscle, the fame, and the Hollywood legend lies a story far more complex. A story marked by pain, loss, and a resilience that has been tested time and again. At 79, the tragedy of Sylvester Stallone is beyond heartbreaking, not because he has been defeated, but because he has survived so much and still stands, a living testament to the power of endurance. Born on July 6, 1946, in the gritty Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of New York City, Sylvester Gardenzio Stallone's earliest memories are not of red carpets or flashing cameras, but of struggle. His father, Frank Stallone Sr., was a hairdresser and part-time actor, while his mother, Jackie, was an astrologer and promoter of women's wrestling. The family was far from stable. Arguments were frequent, and the atmosphere at home was often tense. From the very beginning, Stallone's life was shaped by adversity. A difficult birth left him with nerve damage that paralyzed parts of his face and slurred his speech. A challenge that would haunt him for years and nearly derail his dreams before they even began. School was no refuge. Stallone struggled academically and socially, often feeling like an outsider. He was bullied for his speech and appearance, and teachers dismissed him as a lost cause. But even as a child, there was a spark, a stubborn refusal to give up, a belief that he was meant for something more. He found solace in movies, losing himself in the stories of heroes who overcame impossible odds. The screen became his sanctuary, a place where he could imagine a life beyond the chaos of his own. As a teenager, Stallone's home life grew even more turbulent. His parents' marriage collapsed, and he was shuttled between homes, never quite belonging anywhere. He turned to sports and acting as an escape, channeling his frustration and pain into physicality and performance. But the road to success was anything but smooth. After high school, Stallone attended several colleges, never quite finding his place. He worked odd jobs, cleaning lion cages at the Central Park Zoo, ushering at movie theaters, even appearing in low-budget adult films. Anything to keep his dream alive. The struggle for survival was relentless. Stallone spent years living in near poverty, sleeping in bus stations and barely scraping by. He faced rejection after rejection, his unique looks and slurred speech seen as liabilities in an industry obsessed with perfection. But Stallone refused to quit. He wrote scripts late into the night, pouring his soul onto the page, convinced that his story would one day be told. That story finally found its voice in 1976, when Stallone wrote and starred in Rocky. Inspired by the real-life underdog Chuck Wepner, the script was a raw, honest portrayal of a man fighting for his shot at greatness. Stallone famously refused to sell the script unless he could play the lead, risking everything for a chance to prove himself. The gamble paid off. Rocky became a cultural phenomenon, earning 10 Academy Award nominations and winning Best Picture. Overnight, Stallone went from struggling actor to international superstar. But even as the world celebrated his triumph, Stallone carried the scars of his past. The pain of childhood rejection, the trauma of family dysfunction, and the relentless pressure to succeed never truly faded. Fame brought new challenges, expectations that were as heavy as the burdens he had carried in his youth. The world saw a champion, but behind the scenes was a man still fighting to prove his worth. To himself, and to everyone who had ever doubted him, the world saw Sylvester Stallone as an overnight sensation, But the reality was far more complicated. The success of Rocky was both a blessing and a curse. Suddenly, Stallone was thrust into the unforgiving glare of the Hollywood spotlight, his every move scrutinized, his every word dissected. The pressure to live up to the image of the indomitable underdog was immense. Studios wanted more of the same, and audiences expected him to deliver hit after hit. For Stallone, the line between his own identity and that of his most famous character began to blur. The years that followed were a whirlwind of sequels, action films, and relentless work. Stallone poured himself into the Rocky franchise, writing, directing, and starring in multiple installments. Each film was a new battle, both on screen and off. The physical demands were punishing: intense training regimens, brutal fight scenes, and a constant push to outdo himself. Injuries piled up, broken ribs, torn muscles, and a body that bore the marks of every punch, every fall, every moment of cinematic glory. Stallone's commitment to authenticity was legendary, but it came at a steep cost. As the 1980s progressed, Stallone expanded his repertoire with the Rambo series, cementing his status as an action icon. The character of John Rambo, a haunted Vietnam veteran, resonated with audiences around the world. But the role also forced Stallone to confront the darker aspects of heroism: the trauma, the isolation, the sense of being forever at war with oneself. Off-screen, Stallone's own battles intensified. The demands of fame, the constant scrutiny, and the pressure to maintain his image took a toll on his mental health. Personal relationships suffered. Stallone's first marriage to Sasha Chak, the mother of his two sons, Sage and Sergio, was strained by the relentless pace of his career. The couple eventually divorced, and Stallone remarried actress Brigitte Nielsen, a union that was as tumultuous as it was brief. The tabloids feasted on every detail, turning Stallone's private life into public spectacle. The pain of failed relationships, the loneliness of stardom, and the constant battle to protect his family from the harsh glare of fame weighed heavily on his heart. But perhaps the greatest tragedy of Stallone's life was the struggle of his eldest son, Sage. Born in 1976, the same year Rocky catapulted his father to fame, Sage grew up in the shadow of a legend. He appeared alongside his father in Rocky V, but the pressures of living up to the Stallone name were immense. Sage battled addiction, depression, and the relentless expectations of Hollywood. In 2012, tragedy struck when Sage was found dead at the age of 36, the victim of a heart attack brought on by atherosclerosis. The loss was devastating. Stallone, who had always prided himself on his strength, was brought to his knees by grief. "There is no greater pain than losing a child," he would later say, his voice heavy with sorrow. "It's a wound that never heals." Stallone's second son, Sergio, was diagnosed with autism at an early age. The diagnosis was a shock, and Stallone struggled to come to terms with the challenges it brought. He poured his energy into finding the best care and support for Sergio, determined to give his son every opportunity to thrive. But the journey was fraught with difficulty. Navigating the complexities of the medical system, facing the stigma of disability, and grappling with the guilt of not being able to fix what was beyond his control. Stallone's love for his children was fierce, but the pain of their struggles left deep scars. Through it all, Stallone continued to work, using his art as both a shield and a weapon. He created new franchises, took on new roles, and reinvented himself time and again. But the shadows of his past, the heartbreak of loss, and the relentless demands of fame were never far away. The world saw a hero, but behind the legend was a man still searching for peace, still fighting battles that no one else could see. As the years passed, Sylvester Stallone's career became a study in contrasts. Soaring highs followed by crushing lows, public adoration shadowed by private pain. The 1990s brought new opportunities and new challenges. Stallone sought to break free from the action, hero mold, taking on roles in comedies and dramas, but the results were mixed. Films like Stop, or My Mom Will Shoot, and Oscar were met with critical derision. And for the first time since Rocky, Stallone's star seemed to dim. The industry that had once celebrated him now questioned his relevance, and the sting of rejection was sharp. Yet, Stallone's resilience was as much a part of his character as his iconic roles. He refused to be defined by failure. Instead, he returned to his roots, revisiting the characters that had made him a legend. The late 1990s and early 2000s saw the revival of both the Rocky and Rambo franchises, with Rocky Balboa in 2006 and Rambo in 2008. Stallone proved that the underdog spirit was alive and well. Audiences responded with enthusiasm, and critics acknowledged the depth and vulnerability he brought to these aging warriors. The films were not just about boxing or battle. They were meditations on loss, regret, and the search for redemption. But even as Stallone found new success on screen, his personal life remained fraught with difficulty. His third marriage, to model Jennifer Flavin, brought moments of happiness and stability, but it too was tested by the pressures of fame and the lingering grief over Sage's death. Stallone became a father again, welcoming 3 daughters, Sophia, Sistine, and Scarlett, into the world. He was determined to be present, to offer them the love and support that had so often eluded him in his own childhood. Yet, the fear of loss, the weight of past mistakes, and the relentless demands of his career were constant companions. Health challenges began to mount. Years of punishing physical roles had taken their toll on Stallone's body. He underwent multiple surgeries to repair injuries sustained during filming. Shoulders, knees, neck, and back all bore the scars of a lifetime spent pushing the limits. Chronic pain became a part of his daily existence, a reminder of the price he had paid for authenticity. Stallone spoke candidly about the toll his career had taken, admitting that the line between his on-screen battles and real life suffering had often blurred. Despite the pain, Stallone's work ethic never wavered. He continued to write, direct, and act, driven by a need to create, to tell stories that mattered. The Expendables franchise, launched in 2010, was both a celebration of action cinema and a reflection on aging, camaraderie, and the passage of time. Stallone assembled a cast of fellow icons, many of whom, like him, had weathered the storms of Hollywood, and together they crafted a series that was equal parts nostalgia and self-parody. The films were commercial successes, but for Stallone, they were also deeply personal, a chance to honor the friendships and rivalries that had defined his journey. Yet, the shadows persisted. The loss of Sage haunted him, as did the ongoing challenges faced by Sergio. Stallone's relationship with his daughters was a source of joy, but also anxiety. He worried about the pressures they would face, the expectations that came with the Stallone name, and the dangers of growing up in the public eye. He became fiercely protective, determined to shield them from the mistakes and heartbreaks that had shaped his own life. As Stallone approached his 70s, reflection became inevitable. He spoke openly about regret, the time lost to work, the relationship strained by ambition, the moments of happiness overshadowed by grief. He acknowledged his flaws, his failures, and the pain he had caused others. But he also celebrated the victories, the resilience, and the love that had sustained him through every trial. For Stallone, the journey was never just about winning. It was about surviving, about getting back up after every fall, about finding meaning in the struggle. At 79, the tragedy of Sylvester Stallone is not just in the losses he has endured, but in the battles he continues to fight, against time, against pain, and against the ghosts of a past that will never fully let him go. As Sylvester Stallone entered his later years, the world continued to see him as a symbol of strength and perseverance. Yet, the private battles he faced grew more profound, and the tragedies that marked his journey became even more poignant. The loss of his son Sage remained a wound that never truly healed. Stallone often spoke of Sage's intelligence, his creativity, and the dreams that were cut short far too soon. In interviews, his voice would sometimes falter, the pain of a father's grief breaking through the stoic exterior. "You try to move forward," he once said, "but there's always a part of you that stays in that moment, that loss." The pain of loss was compounded by the realities of aging. Stallone's body, once a machine of muscle and endurance, now bore the marks of a lifetime spent in the ring, both real and metaphorical. Chronic pain, surgeries, and the slow erosion of physical strength became daily reminders that even the strongest heroes are not invincible. He spoke candidly about the fear that gripped him during recovery from surgeries, the uncertainty of whether he would ever return to the screen, and the realization that time, no matter how hard you fight, is undefeated. For Stallone, what mattered most was family. His marriage to Jennifer Flavin, though tested by the storms of fame and personal tragedy, became a source of stability and comfort. Together, they navigated the complexities of raising 3 daughters in a world that often seemed determined to judge and criticize. Stallone became a devoted father, attending school events, cheering from the sidelines, and offering advice drawn from a lifetime of hard-won wisdom. The bond with his daughters deepened as they grew older, and he found new purpose in guiding them through the challenges of adulthood. But even as he cherished these moments, Stallone could not escape the shadows of his past. The trauma of childhood poverty, the sting of rejection, and the pain of public scrutiny continued to haunt him. He watched as the world changed, as new generations rose up to demand justice and equality, and he wondered if his own struggles had made a difference. The fight for respect, for dignity, for a place at the table. These were battles he had waged his entire life, and yet, the work was far from finished. Professionally, Stallone remained as active as ever. He continued to write, direct, and act, his voice as powerful and relevant as ever. He took on new projects, mentored young artists, and used his influence to champion causes close to his heart. He became a fierce advocate for mental health, for veterans, and for the power of storytelling to heal even the deepest wounds. His legacy, he hoped, would not be measured by box office numbers or awards, but by the lives he touched and the barriers he helped to break. Despite his achievements, Stallone often felt isolated. The friendships he had built over decades were tested by time, distance, and the realities of fame. He lost friends to illness, to addiction, to the relentless march of time. Each loss was a reminder of his own vulnerability, of the fragility of life, and of the importance of cherishing every moment. In interviews, he spoke of loneliness, of the longing for connection, and of the difficulty of finding true companionship in a world that so often saw him as a persona rather than a person. Yet, through every trial, Sylvester Stallone's spirit endured. He found comfort in his art, in his family, and in the knowledge that his story had inspired millions. He used his platform to advocate for resilience, for compassion, and for the power of hope to overcome even the darkest days. His legacy, he knew, was not just in the characters he played, but in the example he set for others, proof that even in the face of tragedy, it is possible to rise, to fight, and to find meaning in the struggle. At 79, Stallone stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. His journey is one of heartbreak and hope, of tragedy and triumph, of a man who refused to be defined by his pain. The world may see him as a legend, but behind the legend is a story that is, in every sense, beyond heartbreaking. In the quieter moments away from the cameras, Sylvester Stallone often reflects on the winding path his life has taken. The world knows him as a fighter, a creator, a Hollywood icon, but in his own eyes, he is still the boy from Hell's Kitchen, who learned to survive by dreaming big, who found strength in adversity, and who carried the weight of his family's hopes on his broad shoulders. The journey from those humble beginnings to the heights of global stardom has been anything but easy, and the scars of that journey are never far from the surface. Stallone's resilience is legendary, but it has come at a cost. The relentless pace of his career, the constant pressure to perform, and the burden of being a symbol for so many have left him with little time to care for himself. He has spoken openly about his struggles with depression, about the dark days when hope seemed distant, and about the importance of seeking help when the weight of the world becomes too much to bear. "It's okay to admit you're hurting," he has said, his voice carrying the wisdom of someone who has faced down his own demons and survived. His advocacy for mental health is deeply personal. Stallone knows what it means to feel alone, to battle doubts that no one else can see, and to wonder if the pain will ever end. He has used his platform to encourage others to speak out, to seek support, and to reject the stigma that so often surrounds mental illness. For Stallone, the greatest tragedy is not in the suffering itself, but in the silence that keeps so many from finding the help they need. As he has grown older, Stallone has become more reflective, more willing to share the lessons he has learned. He speaks of forgiveness, not just of others, but of himself, the mistakes, the regrets, the moments of weakness. They are all part of the tapestry of his life. He urges others to embrace their flaws, to find strength in vulnerability, and to remember that every scar tells a story of survival. "You don't get to my age without making a few mistakes," he laughs, his eyes shining with a mix of humor and hard-won wisdom. Family remains at the center of Stallone's world. His wife Jennifer and their daughters are his greatest joys, the anchors that keep him grounded in a world that is often chaotic and unpredictable. He delights in the small moments, cooking a meal, sharing a story, watching his daughters chase their own dreams. These are the memories he treasures, the moments that remind him of what truly matters. In their laughter, he hears echoes of his own childhood, of the mother who taught him to persevere, and of the resilience that has carried him through every storm. Professionally, Stallone continues to defy expectations. He remains a vital presence in Hollywood, his insights and creativity as sharp as ever. He takes on new projects, mentors young talent, and uses his influence to champion causes close to his heart. He is a fierce advocate for veterans, for the underprivileged, and for the power of storytelling to inspire change. His legacy is not just in the roles he has played, but in the doors he has opened for others, in the hope he has given to those who see themselves in his journey. Yet, even as he celebrates his achievements, Stallone is acutely aware of the fragility of life. The losses he has endured, the death of Sage, the challenges with Sergio, the end of friendships, have left him with a deep sense of gratitude for every day. He knows that happiness is fleeting, that pain is inevitable, and that the only certainty is change. But he also knows that love endures, that hope heals, and that the human spirit is capable of rising, again and again, from the ashes of heartbreak. At 79, Sylvester Stallone's story is far from over. He continues to inspire, to challenge, and to remind us all that even in the face of tragedy, there is always hope. At 79, Sylvester Stallone stands at the crossroads of legacy and vulnerability, his life a testament to the power of survival and the cost of greatness. The world sees him as a legend, a man who has broken barriers and redefined what it means to be an underdog. But behind the accolades and the applause is a story marked by heartbreak, sacrifice, and the quiet courage to keep moving forward, even when the path is uncertain and the weight of the past is heavy. In recent years, Stallone has become more open about the realities of aging in the public eye. He speaks candidly about the aches and pains that come with time, about the fear of being forgotten in an industry that is always searching for the next big thing, and about the bittersweet nature of watching the world change around him. He has seen friends and colleagues fade from the spotlight, their contributions too often overlooked, their stories left untold. Stallone is determined that his own story will not end in silence. He continues to write, to direct, to perform, his voice as vital and necessary as ever. His home, once filled with the noise and energy of a growing family, has grown quieter over the years. The laughter of his daughters fills the rooms on holidays and special occasions, but there are also long stretches of solitude. Stallone has learned to find comfort in his own company, to embrace the peace that comes with reflection, and to cherish the memories that have shaped his life. He keeps photographs of Sage and Sergio close by, reminders of the love and the pain that have defined his journey. In the stillness, he finds strength, a reminder that he has survived every storm, and that he is still here, still standing. Financially, Stallone is secure, but he has never been one to chase wealth for its own sake. His success has allowed him to support causes he believes in, to give back to the communities that shaped him, and to create opportunities for others. He is a generous philanthropist, quietly funding scholarships, supporting veterans' organizations, and lending his voice to campaigns for mental health and resilience. For Stallone, true wealth is measured not in dollars, but in the impact he leaves behind. His health remains a constant concern. The aftermath of decades of physical roles lingers, and he is mindful of the need to care for himself. He has spoken about the importance of rest, of listening to his body, and of seeking help when needed. The days of pushing through pain for the sake of performance are behind him. Now, he prioritizes wellness, both physical and mental, understanding that his greatest gift to his family and his audience is his continued presence. Stallone's relationship with his wife Jennifer and their daughters is a source of endless pride and joy. He delights in their achievements, supports their dreams, and offers guidance drawn from a lifetime of hard-won wisdom. The bond between father and daughters, once tested by the demands of fame, has grown stronger with time. Together, they have weathered loss, celebrated triumphs, and built a legacy of love that will endure long after the spotlight fades. Looking back, Stallone is honest about the pain that has shaped his journey. The heartbreak of losing Sage, the challenges of raising Sergio, the sting of public criticism, the loneliness that comes with fame. All of it has left its mark. But he is equally honest about the joy, the laughter, and the moments of connection that have made it all worthwhile. He urges others to embrace their own stories, to find meaning in the struggle, and to never lose sight of the light that exists even in the darkest times. As he enters his 8th decade, Sylvester Stallone remains a force of nature, a man who has faced tragedy with grace, who has turned pain into purpose, and who continues to inspire millions with his resilience and authenticity. His story is a reminder that greatness is not measured by the absence of suffering, but by the ability to rise, again and again, in the face of adversity. If his journey has touched you, if his courage has inspired you, remember that behind every legend is a human being, fragile, flawed, and fiercely alive. Sylvester Stallone's legacy is not just in the roles he has played or the barriers he has broken, but in the example he sets for us all, that even when the tragedy is beyond heartbreaking, hope endures and the spirit survives.